Hi, my name is Angela, and I work for the St. Joseph Public Library at the East Hills branch. I am head of the adult program, Open Book Paranormal Group. And when programming is available and open to the public, we meet the first Thursday of the month, every month, and we talk about all things paranormal and supernatural. This is our first virtual program, and I thought what better way to start it off to talk about the haunting and paranormal experiences that happen at our very own downtown branch. So thanks guys for coming and talking to us. So do you want to go ahead and start?
Sure.
Yep.
I'm Jennifer Sanders Tutt. I'm the local history librarian for the St. Joseph Public Library. I'll start off by talking a little bit about the building that you can see behind us here. This is the downtown branch, or what was called the central branch when it was constructed. Ground was broken in 1900. It was designed by Edmund Eckel, who is a famous architect here. And if you've ever been in the lobby of the downtown library, you'll see the seal on the floor reads 1900, but it didn't actually open until 1902. So the building is quite old. Do you want to move so they can see the, yeah. So there it is.
You totally disappeared.
Yummy.
My name is Trevor Tutt. I'm the curator of exhibits at the St. Joseph Museum, and Jennifer asked me to come on to talk to you about the Owen sisters, which we believe might be the ghosts at the public library. So whenever I start to talk about the Owen sisters, I always like to start with their maternal grandparents, the Cargill family. The Cargills moved to St. Joseph just a few months after it was founded in 1843. They had a large farm east of town, which we actually recently found some articles and land grants that indicate where it was located, over by Belt and Mitchell Avenue, which many Mo West students probably recognize. So a large plot of that land was owned by the Cargill family, and they had a mill at the corner of Felix Street, Frederick Avenue, and 8th Street, which is right there on the corner down from the downtown public library. So most of the Owen siblings were born on the Cargill farm. Mary Alicia Owen was born there in 1850. Her sister Luella quickly followed in 1852, and then a third sister named Florence was born there. Their brother Herbert was either born on the farm, or we do have a picture in collection that says Herbert Owen's birthplace. It's just a cabin. I'm not sure where it's located. Could be on the farm, could be somewhere else. But by the time that the last sibling was born, her name was Juliet. She was born at their new house at the corner of 9th Street and Jules. And if you're at the downtown library and you look out the reference window, you can actually see where their home was. It's now the parking lot for the Zion Church. So the Owen sisters are traditionally Mary Alicia, Luella, and Juliet, and they're recognized as being very unique and interesting individuals in St. Joseph history because they were authors, scientists, poets, artists. If you want to learn more about them, there's a couple books I like to recommend. Doris Mueller's Daring to Be Different, the Missouri's Remarkable Owen Sisters, that talks about the three sisters themselves, and Greg Olson's Voodoo Priests, Noble Savages, and Ozark Gypsies, which focuses on the life of Mary Alicia Owen herself. Mary Alicia was raised by slaves, and so she recorded their stories that they told her as she grew up, and so that's how she got interested in folklore. She wrote about voodooism and then about Native American history and St. Joseph legends because her family was so old and tied to everybody, the founders of St. Joseph. So she knew all these stories and would write them down, publish them in newspapers, and make books. Luella traveled the world as a renowned geologist and cave diver. She actually identified a type of soil that's only found here in the Missouri River, the Rhine River in Germany, and the Yellow River in China. So she did a worldwide trek and then came back here and was pretty famous for that. And then Juliet was one of the founders of the Humane Society here in St. Joseph. She was an avid animal lover and also did the drawings for Mary Alicia's books and various other artistic paths that she took. So the three sisters are very interesting. And again, they lived right near the downtown library, which would have been built while they were while their careers were starting off. So it's easy to see that they probably use that resource quite frequently. We found an article that Mary Alicia's nurse would constantly go and do research for her at the library whenever she was falling ill at the end of her life. So the Owen sisters spent most of their lives at that home. Juliet is actually passed away. The last one passed away, and she passed away in the same room that she was born at that house. So it's very interesting to think about their life and their connection to the library, which may have continued after the grave.
Ooh.
And we've also found little snippets in the papers and different library annual reports from the past talking about Mary Alicia had a folklorist guild, I think, storyteller guild that would meet at the library. And so we think most certainly she was probably using the library, as she was an avid reader and researcher herself. So what do you want me to get started with my story, I guess?
Sure, they sound like very interesting characters. I mean, really.
They were. So my story takes place in the reference room. That's where I work when I'm at the library. And so one evening, I was going back and forth down, it's not really a hallway, but it's the walkway to the elevator, if you've ever been through the reference department. And the book stacks are towards your right, as well as the microphone machines. And so walking through there, there was nobody else in there. I was the only one in there. I see somebody out of the corner of my eye. Well, I thought that was strange. I didn't think anybody was in here. And so I turn, and I kind of step back and turn and look, and there's nobody there. But what I saw was the figure of a woman wearing a dark skirt and a white frilly blouse, and she had her hair done up on top of her head. And if you've ever seen some of the photos of Mary Alicia, specifically there's one where it's an author portrait. It looked exactly like that. And so it's a little strange.
Wow. Was that the only time you saw that?
That's the only time that I've seen that, yeah.
Wow, that's really cool.
Experience.
Did it feel like there was something in the room, or was it just like, oh, you just kind of caught you off guard?
Yeah, a little bit, I guess, because I wasn't expecting anybody. I knew there wasn't anybody in there, and so yeah, it definitely stopped me in my tracks because I thought there's somebody over there, and so I kind of stood there just what's going on for a few seconds.
Wow, that's really cool.
We're having cat issues, sorry.
So was that the only experiences you've had and everything? Because I know you guys said that you needed to head off pretty soon.
That's the only one that I really had. There was like an instance where the door, or Director Mary Beth had shut the door as she was going back and forth, and nobody else had been through there since she had shut the door and left. And when she went back a few minutes later, the door was open again. And so I think that's a common theme with
I think Crystal could talk to that too.
Oh, the closet door.
Did you have anything you wanted to add? Okay.
I think so.
All right. Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. That was really awesome. Thanks, guys.
So long.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. Jen, do you have what?
Does it happen a lot? The doors opening and closing?
Yeah, I wanted you to tell that story, Crystal. Did you want me to?
The reference closet is a place where reference department stores things that we don't leave out on the open shelves. So it's kind of a storage catch-all for books that we just don't want to leave out in the open. And a lot of that stuff came from the balcony. before we renovated. So I think that's pretty important to keep in mind, that a lot of our activity used to happen up on the balcony.
Mm-hmm.
And it has seemed to shift down to the reference department and that reference closet area. So we did have one investigative team several years ago come through, and they felt like the spirit was sort of connected to the collection, like wherever that collection of old books went, it's kind of where the activity sort of migrated. So do you have a picture of the closet door, Jen, that you can
Of the
put up
door,
on the
yes,
screen?
I sure do.
Okay, so I was in the reference department, well, and I'll preface that by saying my name is Crystal Stuck, and I worked at the downtown library for 25 years. So I have lots of stories about the ghost we used to call Rosie before Trevor and Jennifer did all that research, and we kind of turned our focus to thinking maybe that ghost was Mary Alicia. So, and I worked in the reference department. So the picture you see on your screen right now, that is the reference closet door. And it is now locked during the day, but in the morning before we open, it's unlocked because it's got our break room and staff arriving to work. Maybe would put their lunches in the break room and your coats and things like that. And I was working down an aisle in reference one morning, taking books off the shelves and putting them on a cart, and was going to work on this cart of books, and I heard the door open. I didn't give it any thought because, like I said, prior to opening in the mornings, there would be a lot of traffic through that door. So when I stepped to the end of the aisle, I saw the door was completely wide open. So I went over and shut it, went back to my cart. And when I'm at my cart, I can't see the door, I can only hear it. Back at my cart, I hear that door open again, but I'm not seeing a staff person walk by like they just left that room.
Mm-hmm.
So I go back over, and this time I shut it and I make sure it latches. It's one of those doors that during I always get it mixed up. During the winter, it's kind of harder to close, and during the summer, it'll slam shut.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went over, I shut it, I made sure it was latched, went back to my cart. That door opened again. So now I'm getting a little freaked out. So I walk back there, I actually step into the closet. So I go past the doors, and having been there for so long, I just sort of talk to the entity. At the time I was calling her Rosie, and I just went back there and I said, Rosie, knock it off. I'm done. I'm busy. I shut that door, and it didn't happen anymore. So it was just kind of a creepy thing, because when you hear that door open and shut, you expect to see staff.
Right, or at least hear their footsteps or something.
Yes. So that was the reference closet door. And then right inside that reference closet door is our break room. And this story was a staff member that used to work downtown, and she was in the back having her lunch one day. And it was a Saturday. So minimal staff, and pretty much a situation where if you're on break, no one else is, kind of staffing situation. And she's back there eating her lunch and hears someone humming, or maybe it was whistling. Was it whistling? Old Susanna. So that was her little story. And then another story I'm going to share later also kind of ties into that reference closet area. So there is quite a bit of activity back in that corner of the library, that reference area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, and I feel like she listened. I feel like she was just, I mean, all my experiences with the ghost has always been it's creepy, but I've never felt like, oh, they're trying to hurt me, or they're trying,
right.
Nothing like
See,
that.
The scariest story that or the scariest experience that I ever had, I didn't think was related to the ghost at the time, because I thought it was an intruder.
Oh yeah, then that's scary.
Real person.
Yeah.
So
that is
and
more
that's
scarier.
Yeah. And my one where I heard someone say my name when I was in the phone, I thought intruder as well, until you find out.
Anytime you think you're alone in the library and something happens that you're like, okay, someone else has to be here right now. This can't. That's really unnerving. And mine It was when we were closed on Sundays downtown, and my dad had made me a rhubarb pie for my birthday, and I had forgotten it in the fridge in the break room, which is in that reference closet where Crystal was just talking about. But like she said, we would lock that when we were closed. Now we keep it locked all the time anyway, but it was locked, and back then it had a special key that I didn't have access to. I knew there was one in reference, but I didn't know where it was. And so when I came in to get the pie, my husband was waiting for me in the car down by the school district entrance. And I left my purse and my phone. I grabbed my keys and went in, thinking that I would just run up, grab it, run back down. But I got up there and realized I couldn't get into the reference closet. So I went out to the reference desk and I looked just kind of briefly for the key that would get me in there. I couldn't find it. So I was like, okay, who would know where this key is? Because I got to get my rhubarb pie. So I went out to the circulation desk and I looked in the drawer where I thought that we would have the roster, and I'd be able to call someone that I knew would know where it was, and I knew she'd answer her phone. Could not find a roster. So I thought, okay, I'm sure there's one in my manager's office, which that was D at the time. I'm the manager downtown now, woohoo. But back then it was D. And so I went back into the workroom, because you have to go through the workroom to get to her office. And when I opened the door, I was actually facing, I'm going to show you this picture just so I can explain why it was significant. When I went into the workroom, I noticed that the light was on in the staff bathroom. So I didn't really think anything about it. I thought maybe a maintenance person was there at the time, but we were always super careful. We were conserving energy, so we always turned off all the lights. There were no other lights on in the building, but you can see the light on in the transom there. And I didn't want to scare whoever was in there. So I just shouted out, "Hey, it's Jen. I'm just passing through." I go into Dee's office. I look around really briefly. I can't find the roster. So I'm like, okay, I'll go back out and ransack the circ desk again. So as I'm coming back through, I'm thinking, well, I didn't hear anyone respond when I shouted out. So maybe someone did forget to turn the light off. Nobody ever leaves that door shut. I mean, we just leave it standing open when no one's in there.
Mm-hmm.
So we do shut it when someone is in there, just to put everyone's mind at ease. So I go over and I actually knock and I say, "Hello, Kim." That was our maintenance person at the time. No answer. So I knock a little louder. "Is anybody in there?" No answer. So I'm pretty confident someone just left the light on and for some reason closed the door. So I try to open it and it's locked. But here's the thing. You can't lock it and then shut it and have it stay locked. It's one of those that pops unlocked as soon as you close it.
Mm-hmm.
You can only lock it from the inside or with a key from the outside. So I immediately think someone is hiding in the library.
Right, yeah.
And I get super scared because I'm way more scared of the living than I am of the dead.
Mm-hmm.
So I go back out. I decide not to go all the way back through the library, through the reference room and down the stairs back there. I go straight out the front door, lock it behind me, and go down the sidewalk to find my husband at the dock door. And he starts driving away before I can even get a word out, because, you know, he starts chattering as soon as there's another person in the room, he's going. So I'm like, would you just take a breath for a second? I think there was someone hiding in the library. And he said, "What, are you serious?" And I said, "Yes." So he turns around, he comes back around the block. And by then I've called the director and I said, "I think someone's hiding in the library. she says, okay, wait outside. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Sure enough, she must have been, no, she wasn't speeding. She wouldn't do anything like that. So
She just got there rather promptly, that's all.
right. She happened to be really close. So she got there. She and my husband went in the front door so that I could see the exits. The only exits that would have been accessible to someone in the building would have been the door that I'd gone in originally, which I could see from where I was, or the front door, which they had just gone in. There's no other door that they could access without keys to other parts of the building. No one came out. They go in, they go back into the break room, and now the door is open, but the light is still on. So they come out and they say, are you sure you checked the door? And I said, absolutely, I wouldn't open it, it was locked. And they were like, okay, what was open? And they said, it was very clear that no one had used the bathroom. There wasn't, it didn't look like the toilet had been flushed recently. There was no wetness on the bowl. There was no wetness in the sink, so someone hadn't been washing their hands. So they came back out, and we called the police because we were afraid someone was hiding in the building then.
Mm-hmm.
So the police show up, and when they go in, the door to the bathroom is still open, but now the light is off.
And nobody turned it off?
No, they didn't touch anything before they came out. So the police did a sweep on the entire building. We told them all the little nooks and crannies where someone could be hiding. They checked everywhere and didn't find anything. And I still never got my pie.
Oh, no.
Well, I did get it the next day, but it was super frustrating.
Oh my gosh.
And if you were hiding in the library, like if you were a human person hiding in the library, why would you go back and turn the light off?
Yeah, that doesn't.
Well, and if you were hiding, why would you be in a bathroom with the light on?
Right.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So
yeah. I actually, honestly, I prefer to think that was the ghost, because for real.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Will, you want to share a
well,
story?
tell one of yours, because yours are fun.
You want a balcony picture? You want?
No, I'll start. Honestly, I'll tell them out of order. The one that happened the most often, I heard from a couple other employees at the time. So I'm Will Stuck. I worked for the library for 24 years, and the first 6-ish or so were downtown, or kind of part-time downtown. Started there in '93, something like that. And so, but then I was there frequently after that for, I worked for the library. Anyway, one night a week, I used to work in the children's department, and on multiple occasions, on Thursday evenings, you would have a rush before supper, and then it was dead pretty much the rest of the night, because once people went home, they didn't bring their kids back out unless there was a special program or something. And so if anybody was in children's besides the person working the desk, it might be somebody putting books away, but then you're going to know that somebody else is there. And I remember at the time when I was working that one night a week in children's, on multiple occasions pulling books for patrons that had placed them on hold. And I'd set my stack of books down on the counter and then turn around to go do something else and come back and my stack of books was gone. Which would be, I could chalk up to a concussion or two that I've had, except I would go and look on the shelves for them, or think, okay, like kind of retrace my steps because I know I just pulled them, look for about 30 minutes and start getting really frustrated, go do something else, and they would be exactly where I remembered setting them. Like they would just kind of be back. And I know a couple of other children's employees mentioning similar things happening. So that one is the thing that kind of reoccurred more than once for me.
There was that wooden stool downstairs that you used to push under the desk.
Oh, yeah.
And you could pull it out if you wanted to sit on it.
Yeah,
and
that would be.
You'd push it under, go look for something, come back, it'd be pulled out. You'd push it under, it'd be pulled out.
Yeah.
So I remember that.
And then so in children's, that was pretty much all I had was things like that. I know it was there, and then it
Right.
wasn't there, and then it'd be back like 30 minutes later. So for the longest time, I was the person that did, like, if the newspaper was looking for stories on the downtown library's ghost, they called me, and it's not because I have more stories than anybody. In fact, I'm really glad you're doing this because for the longest time, the reason people were asking me was because I was the children's librarian, which means I had no dignity left. So I would tell all the ghost stories that they wanted. I would share my own and others, but I'll start off my two big stories, I guess, the same way I do when I go to schools and tell other things, is I like to start off by saying I have a very vivid imagination. I also come right out and say I don't 100% believe in ghosts. However, there have been so many weird things that have happened in my life I can't explain that it's just easier to go, there's got to be something else there. But I think until I physically see a presence, or I don't know what would have to happen for me to admit it. But I've had two things bigger than the books, or things moving downstairs that whatever. And the first one happened, I should probably tell the second. We'll tell the first one. First one happened right after I started working at the library. So I was 18, 19 years old, and the balcony area, it used to be closed off. It used to be roped off. They didn't, the collections that were upstairs were government documents, older magazines, and books published prior to like 1950. So as Crystal mentioned, the paranormal investigator saying that maybe the entity was attached to the materials up there. That's the main reason we didn't let the public up there. They used to have these little velvet ropes to keep people from going up the stairs. Was just the fragility of the books, first of all. And it's a glass floor balcony. And so I think it was just also,
Some of the glass is cracked.
yeah, there were some panes that were a little
scary.
uncertain.
Time for staff to go up there,
Right.
but
Plus the shock factor, the static electricity
Did
that
they
built
have
up was
boards
crazy.
up there that the librarians had to walk on?
did they have what?
I don't remember any.
No,
No.
you just had to know which
Yeah.
square panes of glass to
Oh,
avoid
okay.
because they actually wobbled.
Right.
Oh, that is so scary.
Yeah. But it was okay for us. Anyway,
It's better
so
now.
basically this was, I was a page at the time, so that meant I was a shelver. And I remember I was up on the balcony shelving one night. And
Jen has a picture of the balcony.
yeah, if you want to show the picture, you can. I was up on the balcony shelving, and this was before patrons could get up there like they can now. And the only people working in the library that night was one library assistant in the children's department downstairs. There were two male librarians working at the circulation desk. And then there was one person working in the reference room, and then me up in the balcony shelving. And I was up there squatting down, shelving books down one of these aisles, and I distinctly heard high heel shoes walking on the glass. That's a pretty distinct sound. And I heard it, and it only sounded like it was an aisle, maybe 2 aisles away, but no further than that. Like, it was that loud. And, as an 18, 19-year-old guy, I thought, I get to kick somebody out. A little machismo kicked in. I was ready to boot somebody off the balcony and make, pretend I was more important than I really was.
Yeah.
And so I got up and turned the corner, and nobody was in that next aisle. And I checked the aisle after that. Nobody was there. Walked all over the balcony, and there was nobody up there with me. And so I went back to shelving, thinking I was just hearing something different. And also at this time, I like to point out, the lobby was carpeted. So you didn't have the terrazzo. There was no echoing of footsteps down in the lobby because that was carpet. And so I went back to shelving, just kind of dismissed it. I must have misheard something. And no sooner had I started shelving, it was in the aisle next to me on the other side. And so I get up and I look again, nobody's there. And I go and I start just kind of looking to make sure it wasn't one of the guys working the front desk messing with me. And both of them were sitting down, like having a discussion about who knows what. They were full of drama, but it had nothing to do with ghosts. So I knew it wasn't them. And the person who was working in reference, I've never seen her in anything other than loafers and tennis shoes. So I don't think she would wear high heels. So that was my first big experience. And I really couldn't explain it. There was no patrons that I saw that had high heel shoes on. Nobody in the balcony with me, but very, very distinctly heard it. And it stopped when I got up and investigated and started back up again when I resumed my work. So that was kind of my first real experience. And my second bigger experience happened much later. This was probably, I don't even remember when I started painting the murals on the staircase that lead down to Children's. But so this is probably mid, like 2005, 2006 maybe, or no, because Lily
No, it would have been later than that.
maybe like 2010, because we did the ones downstairs, and basically it was requested after the initial remodel down in the children's department. It was asked that I paint stuff on the stairway leading down, so people in the lobby would see, oh, the children's department's down there.
Right.
Well, I worked at the library full time, and I was painting as kind of a side gig, and so I couldn't go basically block the stairway during library hours. Plus, I was working full time at the library at that point, so I couldn't just, well, I'm going to go paint downtown because, I'm not being paid to paint. I was paid to be a librarian. I'm paid to paint after hours. So I would come home, eat dinner with the family, and I would go to the downtown library and paint at night. So the library closed at 9. I probably got in there and set up by 10 and would paint from 10 till about 1 in the morning, then go home. And I did this for about a week. And again, vivid imagination, but I also can kind of just, if I have music, I can shut it out. Let's put it that way. And there is a painting of a leaf, and it actually says Children's Department with a caterpillar. And that was a very precarious, on ladders, probably non-OSHA compliant painting situation I was doing.
It's on an angle. So
yeah, oh yeah,
the
it was rough.
stairs to a turn, and it's kind of a
right. And I remember this was probably like I was putting that one off till the end, so that was kind of maybe night 3 or 4 of painting. And right as that night started, I was up on the ladder and I heard talking and like voices, but it was multiple male voices, and I couldn't tell where it's coming from at first. I got down off the ladder and looked, and it was just a couple people hanging out on the stoop of the library. So I thought just outside the building, and I was painting right there. So I just kind of ignored it, went back up on the ladder, and eventually they wandered off. Well, hearing them talk kind of put me on edge for the rest of the night. Like I was really sensitive to noises.
Yeah.
And I remember up there painting, and I heard a loud, what sounded like a book fall off a shelf and onto the balcony floor. And again, I'm the only one in the library, already a little on edge, and I hear that sound, and I kind of turn and listen, and I don't hear anything, and I go back to painting, and then I hear it 2 or 3 more times, and it's loud, and it's not like an HVAC unit turning on. Like this was distinctly something falling. I basically wrapped up my painting early that night and went home, but the next night I brought headphones and put those in, but I kept thinking, even with the headphones in, that I was hearing sounds coming from back in the stacks area. So again, nothing horrible.
So you didn't go investigate or anything to see if anything?
No, it's amazing once you have kids, some of the bravado you had as a 19-year-old goes away. And so no, I totally did not.
Well, Will, you were talking about your stuff up on the balcony, and I know Crystal had some stuff up on the balcony too, but I just finally got the real story from Riley 2 nights ago about what happened to him up there, because he started out as a page downtown as well and ended up, did I ever say my name, by the way? Did I ever introduce myself, or was I completely slack?
It's on the screen, but
I know. I'm Jen Wildhagen. I started out in Children's downtown and then moved upstairs, so I've only had most of my experiences since I moved up, really. But so Riley started out as a page downtown, and he said that he was, how the shelving is separated into columns. You can actually see it in that picture behind you guys. He was shelving at the end of one row of shelves, and 2 columns down, on the same level that he was shelving, it was like someone just went whoosh and knocked all the books off.
Mm.
And he ran from that balcony so fast. I mean, he went back up later, but he was not going to hang out to find out what else they were going to do right then.
That's because he had to get his cart.
Yeah.
He left his cart.
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah. And my balcony experience, very short. I was up there shelving. I was a page as well. So this would be at some point between 1990 and 1994. And I was up on the balcony, and the aisles aren't really ADA compliant. It's not quite 3 feet.
Mm.
And so I'm squatted down shelving. So if someone were to walk behind me, they would touch you. I mean, it would be hard unless they stepped over you. And I was squatted down shelving and felt that whoosh of someone walking behind me, like so clear that, you know, I almost fell over turning around and going like this.
No, she's not.
Oh, I disappeared. Trying to find, you know, but no, there was nobody there. I was up there by myself, but they didn't knock me over, but I felt it, you know, you can feel it. So
Oh.
yes, spooky stuff. Let's see, what other stories was I going to tell, Jen, besides the biggie?
Well, who has
Well,
this?
you had.
Oh, go ahead.
The Sunday. Okay, when we used to be open in the 90s, early 2000s, we were open 1 to 5 on Sundays. Now it's 11 to 3. But I would always get dropped off about noon because we only had one car and you had to work at East Hills sometimes. And so I'd get dropped off at noon. No big deal. I've been in the downtown library by myself lots of times. And knowing there's something there with me, I'm okay. It doesn't really bother me. But did you take a picture of the reference walkway or the field room? So I had just taken my stuff to that, you know, that scary closet, put my lunch away and my purse and all that. And I'm walking out of the closet, going through the main reference room. And as clear as day, I kid you not, clear as day, I hear my name, Crystal. And I assumed that my co-workers for the Sunday shift, yes, I was walking towards that big open doorway, and on the right hand side of that picture are 2 large entryways into another room. And as I was walking down that way, my name came out of that other room, and so badly that I called you and said, and I've never done this before, I said, you need to come back. I'm not alone. It was one of those kind of like yours, Jen.
Yeah.
It's not an entity. There's somebody
You're
here
okay
with me.
You're okay being there with something, being there with someone,
Yeah,
totally different.
Totally different. And he was sort of like, really, I have, you know, and I was like, you know what? No, you don't have to. That's silly. You don't have to come back. So he didn't. But
Bravado gone.
But so I went ahead and went around the entire building, turned all the lights on. My coworkers were not there yet. And so, yeah, it had me on edge the whole day because it was my name.
Right.
I heard it. I know what I heard, and that was what I heard, my name, with nobody in the building. So, and if it had been a stranger in the building, I mean, how would they know my name? But anyway, it was very strange.
Yeah, that's really personal when it's your actual name.
Yeah.
And then no one's there.
Yeah. But if that happened, I mean, I would have been there 15 years or so by then. So the entity would have known.
Kind of assume that later you're like, yeah, it was probably just, you know, Rosie or whoever.
Yeah.
And you know how you always kind of think, did I just see that out of the corner of my eye? And I had a couple of those down in Children's where it was actually the same morning that I thought it happened 2 different times. We had a coloring table back in the middle of the room. And when I first came in, everything seems to happen in the mornings with me. I mean, it's always actually early morning, but it wasn't dark in that room, but the lights weren't on. It was just the natural light coming through the windows. So it was kind of shadowy. And I thought I saw someone sitting at the coloring table, and that, you know, it makes your heart kind of go, kind of seize up. And then I meant to tell everybody when I went upstairs to get the mail, completely forgot, got distracted talking to somebody. And when I came back downstairs, I walked in from the hallway door into the children's department, and for just a second saw someone sitting in my chair that was right next to the door. That was back when I did interlibrary loans, so I was near the hallway door. And I swear I saw someone sitting there, flicked on the light, which was right next to me, and there was nobody there. But you just still have that kind of feeling.
Yeah. So did it look like an adult sitting there?
Yeah, it was adult sized for sure. But I will say that some of my favorite stories were the ones about money being left around.
Yeah.
You gotta love a generous ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Frank Harris, our custodian at the time downtown, now he's at Washington Park Library, he found money on the balcony.
When it was closed off
And
to
we're not
patrons,
talking,
right?
what?
It was when it was closed off to patrons, right?
Yes, back when it's closed off to patrons. And we're not talking a quarter or $1. We're talking $20.
And a librarian is not so wealthy that they're not going to know if they've lost
if I lose
$20.
$20, I'm going to know I lost
I'm
$20.
gonna know I lost it.
And then Mary Beth, our director, found money in the staff bathroom, the bathroom that you showed a picture of earlier. And that was more current. And really, when she went around asking, you know, did you lose money? Did you lose money? I remember it being a time where I never have cash on me. So it was, you know, it's been more current debit card time. Because, you know,
I want to say that was close to the levee, because I remember making jokes about the ghost knowing the library was hitting up the public for a levy.
Oh, I remember you saying that too.
so maybe 2010 was our levy that failed.
Was it 10 or 12?
10.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so so that was more current, and it was $20 in the staff bathroom, but no staff would claim it. They're like, it's not mine, it's not mine. You know, so the director of the library found it in the bathroom that was locked and had a light on in your story, and Frank Harris found 20 on the balcony. So
also, I love Frank to death, but I don't know that Frank would have been offering up free $20.
Yeah.
No. I mean, would any of us, if
Well, I would. I don't know. I would.
okay.
I don't know what I would do until I was in that situation. No, I'd probably give it back. I'd turn it in.
So I want to save yours for last, Crystal, because it's such a good one. It's my favorite one.
Okay.
So I'm just going to tell about the things that happened last spring, because that was when I first had come upstairs when I moved up to the manager of the branch. My office was upstairs then, so I'm part of the circulation team now. And it was a morning in, I think, April of 2019, nice and sunny out. It was beautiful. And there were 2 other staff members there, but they were in the workroom. And I was at the circulation desk. I'd been checking things in, and I was heading back to put something on a cart, and I saw a figure moving in the stacks. And I'll show you which stacks, because apparently Will has another story about these particular stacks. If I can find it again.
Is this the second to last aisle to the east of the
Correct.
building? That's the aisle that when we would close at night, when we were pages, when we were like 16, 17, 18, we would dare each other to run down that aisle to the end and then come back.
Because it was so dark.
It's so dark and scary.
So dark. And very few pages would do it. Well, a run wasn't the thing. Could you walk down?
Yeah, and I
walk
have
all
a
the way to the
picture.
end and walk back. And
So look at how nice and bright this is. Oh. Let me actually share it so you can see how nice and bright this is. And then I have a picture from mere seconds later that demonstrate how dark it is. This is no lights on. This is just morning light. And I saw a figure through the stacks. So I don't know if you can see that. Can you see the marker there?
Yeah.
Okay, it was in that stack, right behind that shelf. that I saw a black figure moving along, just a shadow figure. And it was startling enough that I went to check it out. And because I hadn't seen anyone come out of the workroom. And I actually, because it's so dark down here, this is bright morning light, and it's still that dark back there.
Yeah. So imagine 10 till 9 at night. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's gotta be pitch.
Yeah.
I walked all the way back there. There was nobody there. I went into the break room or in the workroom, and I said, either of you just out there? And they said, no, we were both back here just chattering away. And so I told them what I'd seen. They came out to check it out. In the next 2 weeks, 2 other staff members spotted a shadow figure, one up on the balcony and one down in the stacks. And also in that time frame, one of our staff members, they were going to go up to they were going back to the DVDs to help someone find something. And right here, next to the stairs, a book flew off of one of those shelves in front of her face and hit the stairs right in front of her.
Wow. So that had some force to it.
Yeah. And nobody was on the other side. I mean, she stopped and looked through and everything, and there was nobody there. So that all happened within 2 weeks, and then everything just kind of settled down.
So was that before or after the collection moved to Reference?
Oh, that was well after.
Okay, so I didn't know if it was like one of those things that, like, since they think it's connected to the materials, then if you move it, then it might kind of spike in activity before, calming down.
Weren't some of the things upstairs interfiled in the collection after that, though, because there wasn't space for it? So there is some stuff that was on the balcony that was interfiled. Not a lot by any means, but
No, and most of that would probably still be in nonfiction on the balcony.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So what was your story in the aisle that Jen had up there?
So in that aisle that Jen's in there, it was one of these times where I mentioned earlier where the newspaper had contacted me wanting ghost stories because they were whatever. And shortly thereafter, I received a Facebook message from somebody that I was not friends with, didn't know, at all, who said that he was an amateur paranormal investigator, and that he was in the downtown library on his own time while the library is open doing research, and was taking some thermal imaging of the place. And in that second to the last aisle, he is convinced he saw a humanoid shape that was giving off a heat register, and he wanted to know if I would be interested in meeting with him and going over the images. And the main reason I didn't was because he kept throwing out the word demonic shape. It's one thing when somebody's like, oh, it's a ghost and whatever, but he kept saying he said humanoid once, and then the rest of the time he referred to it as demonic or demon shaped, and I was like, no, I'm not interested, thank you so much.
Yeah, we don't believe Mary Alicia is a demon. She's just
a
tiny little ghost.
Well, I know that Jennifer says she saw like what looked like a female, in a skirt and a ruffle shirt and, a bun basically, or updo. All the shadow figures that you've seen, or things you see out of the corner of your eye, do they look feminine, or is it just too dark, dark to tell or quick?
Well, I hate to be sexist, but I do think that they had a skirt on. So I'm not saying that had to be a woman.
In all my experiences,
I'm gonna step out. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything. I've heard things, I've felt things, but I've never seen a figure. So
and pages have been tapped on the shoulder up on the balcony. I was tapped on the foot in the Owen room.
Yeah, we named a room after them.
Yeah. we were hoping that maybe some of the weirder stuff would stop, but no.
Yeah. So are we ready for the big one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll
So
let you start it off.
I'm going to kick it off, but even though I was present but not upstairs yet, okay? So this was 2 branch managers ago, and a patron was sitting at this, I'm going to bring it up here. No, I want to go back. Sorry, guys, just a second. They were using the card catalog that sits right behind the circulation desk. And they wanted Mary Alicia's book, The Daughter of Alouette. So they type it into the catalog, and as soon as it comes up on the screen, computer dies. And the patron says, oh, this computer just died. I don't know if it's just a monitor or what. So Carolyn, who happened to be working the circulation desk, came back. Oh, well, it died. So she starts it back up. It comes back up. She types in the title again, and the computer dies again. So Carolyn said, well, that's weird. That computer must be acting wonky. Just come over here and tell me what you want, and I'll type it into my computer. So she goes up to the circulation desk, and the patron tells her it's The Daughter of Alouette. It's by Mary Alicia Owen. And Carolyn types it in, and as soon as the information comes up on the screen, her computer dies. And she says, I don't know what's going on. These computers get so crazy sometimes. Let's just know what you're looking for, and she'll be able to help you. So she walks over, and I'm going to bring a picture of the reference desk up so that you can see what Carolyn would have been looking at. And like I say, Crystal was working, so I'm going to let her take the story over here. And I do have the other pictures that you would need to tell the story, so let me know when you're ready for them.
Okay. So yes, I was sitting here at the reference desk, and I was facing the calendar that's on the desk. So I was not currently using my computer. And this was back when if you didn't touch your computer for a while, the screensaver would come on. And my screensaver, I had no screensaver, so the screen would just go black until you touch the mouse again or something. And Carolyn came up to the reference desk to the side and said that she had a patron who was looking for a book. Could I look it up on my computer, because she was having computer issues? And before I could turn around and touch the computer mouse, Carolyn goes, oh, who's that on your screen? And I'm like, nobody. My screen is black. And I touched my mouse, and my screensaver came up, and it was my dog Hagrid was my screensaver, was my backdrop on my desktop. And I said, what lady are you talking about? And she goes, there was a lady on your screen. She was kind of older, had her hair up, had like a ruffle collar. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. So we went on to business. I said, what book are you looking for? And she told me, and I started to type it in on my computer, and the computer went black. Not really, I had no idea at that time that this had happened 3 other times before they got to me. So I wasn't freaking out yet.
Yeah.
So I knew where this book was, and guess where that book is? It's in that reference closet with all that old stuff we can't keep out. So when you go to the reference closet, and do you have a picture of the reference closet, Jen?
That's with lights on, just so you can see what kind of lights we have.
Yeah.
They all turn together. They're on a single switch.
Right. So there are 3 rows back there. So there's 3 rows of those lights, but it's a single switch. The plastic there kind of adds to the creepiness. But anyways, so the book I wanted was, I would have had to go down this aisle all the way and all the way to the left. So it's the furthest back corner. And so I flipped the light on. I walked down the aisle, took a left all the way to the corner, and this is the book right there. It's not even the original. It's a copy of. We have the original, but we like to just hand the copy out to people if they're just going to thumb through it and look at it. And so I pulled that book off of the shelf, and that third row of lights where I was went out, which is strange because it's all one light switch and there are multiple bulbs, but the whole aisle went out. So now I'm kind of freaked out. I take the book out to Carolyn. I say, when your patron's done with it, bring it back to me. We do have a return cart, but for things in the reference closet, oftentimes we'll put those things away right away.
Right.
So Carolyn takes the book to her patron uses it, they bring it back. I'm now a little scared to go in the reference closet. So I go in, I walk down that aisle. First of all, I turn the lights back on, that row is still out. I go to the corner, I put the book back, the light comes back on. So there are so many elements to that story. Computers just dying when we're trying to look up that particular book. I don't know what Carolyn saw on my black computer monitor.
Well, don't you have the picture? I mean, don't you have the picture we think it might have been?
Yes.
From the description, Trevor and Jennifer found this picture and shared it with us.
So I'll share that. Let me know when you see it.
Oh, there it is.
Okay, so the middle lady is Mary Alicia, I believe. But this is, she said, a black dress with a collar and something hair or something up here. And so yeah, I mean, that's what Carolyn said she saw. There would have been nothing like that on my computer screen. It was my dog in the background of my computer. But Carolyn, I mean, I think everybody downtown knows who the Owen sisters are because we have all their books.
Mm-hmm.
But she would have had no reason to make that up, to go, oh, who's that person on your screen? Oh, she had this and that and this. I mean, that just wasn't where we were at that moment. We were trying to help a patron find a book.
Right.
So, yeah, it was really just kind of bizarre. But we put the book back and she was happy. The light came back on and all was good with the world.
And what was the title of the book?
The Daughter of Alouette.
Yes.
And did they have anything to do with that book, or? Because what's so special about that book?
Mary
Just
Alicia
that Mary Alicia wrote it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, it's one of their.
You do have another story, Crystal.
Which one?
The old card catalog.
Oh, yeah. The we used to have like mini libraries, humongous, giant, weighs a ton, probably more than 1 ton. I don't know. Card catalogs, wooden card catalogs, and they were back to back in the main lobby. Kind of, this is backwards. Would be in the middle of the lobby, more where the circ desk is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And full, they would be, I mean, they're basically impossible to knock over. And one morning, and this was just a story I heard, but one morning our maintenance staff came in and one of those card catalogs was knocked over. And so that's bizarre. I think you would have to pull out every drawer to get the weight in order to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't know how you would knock it over. It's not something you would bump into and knock over. I mean, you would have to, yeah, it would take
And it wasn't like that when staff left that night, and it was like that when maintenance got there the next morning.
Yeah, there's
Correct.
no way you could do it on its own.
This was long ago times. That's a passed down story.
So was that when the lobby was carpeted? I thought that happened when they were getting ready to maybe do the remodeling back in 2004.
No, because I started in 1990 and we automated then. So I didn't even get to work at the library very long before the card catalog was gone.
I'm sorry.
So yeah. Anyways.
Wow. That's really cool. So it sounds like it probably would be was it Alicia Owen?
Mary Alicia.
Mary Alicia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That sounds really cool.
That's who we think it is. And you know, we've had 2 or 3 ghost hunting crews come through, and they are convinced that something is there, but I mean, sometimes, like Bethany, when she was working by herself on Sundays to get some hours in, she would hear children singing, she'd hear a woman talking, she'd hear knocking around and stuff, and she's got to the point where she wouldn't come upstairs anymore. She would just work downstairs and call it good. But the acoustics around there, the way the alley is right behind it, and then the way the streets are and everything, it could act like a sound chamber. So
Yeah.
an echo chamber type of thing where you don't know where the sounds are coming from. Will talking about hearing the voices and they were just on the front porch.
Mhm.
That can happen super easily.
Well, and the fact that the library shares a building with the school district. So there may be times where their staff are in the building and we're not aware of it. So yeah, some of the noises and stuff, you know, who
And
knows?
it could be when the lights are warming up or when they're cooling off. You guys have that really bad at East Hills.
Oh, it's bad. The first time they turned them off, it was like on my first weekend or something, and I'm like, what is all that noise?
Yeah. So, you know, I can explain away a lot of it with that kind of stuff, but there have been so many situations and descriptions of activity that I'm just like, something's here.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it really does make the haunted library that we do some years really fun, because you know, we're the ones, people who have experienced stuff there are the ones giving the tours to the groups, and it just adds to the creep factor.
Mhm.
We discuss every year before haunted library, how much do we have to hunt it up? It's kind of scary all by itself. Just turn the lights out and walk people through, you know.
Yeah.
So, and we'll go ahead and let you all know that we're really sad and upset that we're not going to be able to do haunted library this year. Our plan was to do it on every even year, but because of the pandemic and all that, we just can't pull it off before October. We've lost a lot of planning time.
Mhm.
And
And we don't
and
know
then
what
not-
it's going to look like in October.
Right. So we're hoping to do the haunted library again in 2021.
That would be awesome. So is that it, ladies?
I can't think of any more stories. Can you?
No, not until the next thing happens.
So
Posted.
I have a question. So when you heard Crystal, did it sound like a female?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, because that's why I checked to make sure my, you know, I knew who I was working with that day were females, and so I kind of went through the staff areas real quick, flipping lights the whole way everywhere when I flipped the light on, and nobody was there. Yeah, I was hoping it was a staff, a coworker,
Mhm.
and it wasn't, because they weren't there.
And that
Yeah, it
one
was
I can't
definitely
explain
female.
away with some, you know, sounds coming from outside. Because
Yeah.
one, it came from a room that was an interior room. And
Interior,
second,
yeah.
it was your name. It was
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
like,
That, you know, the Carolyn story with the closet and the lights going off and the computer's not working, and someone, you know, kind of going by me on the balcony. The one with my name was the scariest one. That I think was the time I was the scariest, was that one.
But is that
Personal.
because you thought it was an actual person at first?
Yeah, I thought it was a person. Well, at first I thought it was a coworker, you know,
Right.
so I wasn't scared. And then I started getting scared because they weren't there. And then going through that whole library and not seeing someone, you know, ducking around a corner trying to get out or away from me, is when I started to think that this entity that had never, that I've never seen,
Mm-hmm.
was vocal. And that was a new experience for me. It had always been doors opening and closing and you know, things like that. And so yeah, that the fact that it was vocal kind of got
and
to me.
Yeah.
I think that when Jennifer saw the figure in the reference stacks was within the month that we saw the shadows out in circulation. A lot
Mhm.
happened right then, and I don't know why.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to maybe start a journal so that we could date these incidences to see if they're clustered around a death date or a birth date or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah, to
And of
find out
course,
why.
we weren't here. We weren't at the library this April to find out if it would do any kind of repeat.
Yeah.
Dang
To
it.
be continued.
Yeah.
I wonder what the Owen sisters are thinking of all the quietness at the library right now because we're closed.
I bet they
The
don't like it.
inactivity. They're probably having a party. You think
I
think
know.
they don't like it?
No, I don't think they like it. I think they like having people there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, hopefully we'll be back soon.
Don't we all miss people?
Yes. I want to go back to work. Come on.
I really want to get back
Fingers
to the
crossed.
library.
I'm so bored.
I know. I miss people so much.
Aw. All
Yeah.
right. Well, I guess we'll wrap this up. So I want to thank everyone for watching. And if you have any comments, I'd like to hear about it. If you enjoyed this type of programming, just let me know. And I hope everyone's staying healthy and safe. And maybe we'll see you again next time. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Angela.
Thank you.